The Quickening brings us to late Season 4. Thus, Worf is firmly established, the Dominion are a threat but in a more Cold War sense, and the Klingons and Maquis are still a problem. But this episode is mostly removed from all of that. The Dominion are brought up, sure, but only the legacy of a long-ago attack. Worf gets seconds of airtime here as well, and the Klingons and the Maquis are non-existent, so once we get past the opening, the episode is all in with its very specific plot. But that opening, it's one of my favorites, with the staff dealing with Quark having infiltrated the system to have it give advertisements for his bar.
Come to Quark's is fun. Come right now. Don't walk. Run!
And to be fair, it's shorter than the ads you get online today. What moves an already acceptable gag over the top is when the enraged Worf arrives.
I ordered a glass of prune juice from the replicator in the Defiance mess. This is what it came in.
Come to Quark's is fun.
That is so incredibly tacky in every way. I would buy the shit out of those. This whole scene is around 90 seconds, and I could watch it over and over again. Dorn especially delivers as Worf, seemingly ready to throw down over having to listen to that jingle every time he took a sip. But this is primarily a Bashir story, and he gives us, not the crap that we saw with last month's crossover, but still, pretty excessive exuberance.
Points of light out there, the great unknown, beckoning to us. I wish I could visit every one.
You might want to skip the ones with Jem'Hadar bases on them.
Is it my imagination, or are the stars a little brighter in the Gamma Quadrant?
Did you finally bone Dax? Because you either just boned Dax or you had something fall on your head. And if you don't stop, the latter will be arranged. His high gets harshed when they get a planetary distress signal about a Jem'Hadar attack, and they go to check it out, but whatever happened here, they missed it by a few decades at least. In fact, later on we find it's more like centuries. These people have been reduced to a level of refugees, struggling to survive, and not helped by clearly suffering from some kind of disease.
I'm gonna give you something for the pain. You're not from this world? No.
Thought so. Want to buy a watch? No, thank you. It's great. Tells the time, recharges from the movement of your arm, and every hour it plays.
Come to Quark's is fun.
The very sick woman is ignored by everyone else. In fact, Dax has to trade her hair clip away just to find out where the hospital is, run by a guy named Trevian. Once they arrive, one of the people working there repeats that she is quickened. Like in Highlander, except instead of growing more powerful, you keel over dead.
You're from another world.
Yes.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but your insurance company is going to call this out of network for sure. Everyone here, not just in the hospital I mean, but everywhere, looks to be infected as well, with this guy looking bad like the lady they'd brought in here. But he's mighty cheerful about it, and thanks Trevian profusely when he comes out, and explains that their disease is an example for anyone who resists the Dominion. Obey us, or you'll all die horribly and look like an angry road map doing it. Before they can expand upon it, the guy that was praising Trevian falls over, so Bashir rushes over to help, not grasping what's going on here. This hospital is more of a hospice in that it's to help give time when the quickening happens to feel a little better and then to die. The goblet the guy drank was some kind of poison to let him slip away painlessly and peacefully. So they take issue with Bashir rushing in and making a huge scene out of what was supposed to be a quiet moment of respect. To them, he's like someone who leaps up in the middle of a wedding ceremony to declare that love is a lie and marriage institutionalized slavery before whipping it out and pissing on the bridesmaids. The battle, it turns out, was 200 years ago, so there's not a whole lot they can do about that right now. But a woman named Ikoria, who is pregnant, is looking for some help. I mean, real help and not being put down. She wants to ensure that at least her baby will be delivered. But things are complicated by a couple Jem'Hadar patrol ships. They're not here yet, but their patrols suggest sooner or later they'll be swinging nearby, so the runabout has to amscray or they'll be detected. The plan is to have the Federation send a relief mission to this planet to try and help, but Bashir has concerns about that. I mean, you know how fast the wheels of government grind. That kid's going to be playing T-ball by the time the relief team shows up. So he and Dax should work on it instead, he thinks. I mean, you've seen this show before. Solving a problem in under a week is what we do around here.
We can't risk the Jem'Hadar detecting the runabout. I'll take it to the Genkata Nebula.
You're going to spend a week alone on this runabout in a nebula. I'm a hermit, and even I wouldn't want to do that. I don't know what you're going to do to keep from going crazy, unless your mission was to transport crate after crate of sex toys out to the frontier, and... Well, you know, that would explain why Bashir was so giddy before, so I withdraw the statement. So Bashir and Dax head down, and Ikoria lets them stay in her portion of this group home. So it's time to get things put in place, and then begin looking for the culprit. And Ikoria so believes in this that, for dinner, she uses the food that she'd been saving up for her death feast. Ironic that she's got so much there probably would have been leftovers. But while they're making progress, they really need more data, someone who has quickened especially, to see how the disease progresses into those final stages. Like the bald guy from earlier.
Well, I'd invite you to my death, but we don't know each other that well.
Yeah, it's cool. I've already got 2 deaths and a maiming lined up. When Bashir says he wants to help, the guy suspects that he's trying to swindle him. So Bashir heals a boy's arm to show he has fantastic equipment that might save them. But Trevian rains on his parade by coming out and addressing, well, the obvious concern. People are always coming around claiming to have a cure, peddling false hope. You might think he's the rabble-rouser local in these tales who is trying to preserve what tiny amount of power or influence he has, but we can see that what worries him are 2 things: being conned and suffering, the latter being both the physical ailment of the blight and filling desperate people with a hope they can't deliver on. He's not here to horsewhip Bashir out of town. He's here to warn him that if he's another one of those kind, well, you better keep that bone-knitting device handy because he'll need to use it when they're through. Bashir is careful to set realistic expectations, that he wants to help people but he can't promise anything, and he's not looking to be compensated for his work. Still, people are suspicious, and Ikoria admits that they've come to worship death. It's understandable. When all hope has been taken away, you do what you can to make the best of a terrible situation. You approach the inevitable on your own terms. You take ownership of it. Make it something that you can control. It has, in the end, warped society around the idea of death. Still, you might be surprised that the episode seems to cast a negative light on euthanasia, given that Star Trek is usually very left-wing. But this story was meant to be an AIDS allegory, so AIDS trumps euthanasia, see? There really needs to be a metric to keep track of which is more important. Somebody make an app for that. Well, it seems some people are inspired to take a chance on hope, including the bald guy. With this data, Bashir puts together an antigen that he thinks should cure it, and they're able to provide pain relief as well, since in the later stages the disease is agonizing. He feels real good about what they're doing and takes some time to discuss his views on medicine with Ikoria by the light of the burning trash.
I prefer to confront mortality rather than hide from it. When you make someone well, it's like you're chasing death off, making him wait for another day.
But death comes to everyone eventually.
Except Kukalaka.
Isn't that the Mexican song about a cockroach? No. But cockroaches are really hard to kill. It's still not what I meant. Well, his good time gets a quick dose of reality because Bald Guy is convulsing. The virus is mutating, and they've no idea why. Bashir finally realizes that the cause of this is the EM field generated by their equipment. They're all suffering from the same thing that's happening to Jimmy's brother on Better Call Saul. Bashir and Dax rush into action, but it's too little, too late. Bald Guy dies, and the rest of the patients are all begging Trevian to put them out of their misery. Well, naturally, Bashir feels like an enormous ass right now, especially when he confesses to planning to nonchalantly mention how he cured that blight thing to Kira, reflecting on the arrogance of presuming that he could cure the incurable, and in a week no less.
Maybe it was arrogant to think that. But it's even more arrogant to think there isn't a cure just because you couldn't find it.
I know you feel bad, but I want you to know you should feel worse. To top it off, he wanders dejectedly through the streets, a guy spitting as Bashir walks past, and he finds Ikoria is quickened now. It's still too early for her to deliver, so her baby's not going to make it either. So Bashir decides to stay behind and continue his work using low-tech options so as not to make things worse. The oath, after all, is first do no harm, not fuck up everything you touch. The antigen doesn't seem to be working, and the pain of the quickening can only have the edge taken off so much because of the need to protect the baby from the effects of the painkiller. Don't want the kid coming out demanding Bashir hook him up. Don't make me cut you, man! Bashir thinks he can induce labor safely in 2 weeks, so he just has to get her to hold on for a little while longer. Trevian stops by to put something on her lesions, presumably to help deal with the pain. Managing pain is really what he's all about, after all, even if more often than not it's just a hemlock martini. So soon she's in labor, but after all that hard work, the worrying, the agony, the fear, you finally get to hear that beautiful, beautiful sound.
Captain Quark's is fun.
Well, Julian is astonished. There's no sign of the blight on his skin at all. This kid is as free of blemishes as a Kardashian after a weekend spa trip. The antigen had no effect because the baby got the full dose of it, as she gets to live long enough to see her baby before the end. But not much, so it's Trevian who is most enraptured at the sight. The treatment is actually a vaccine, not a cure, but if distributed, this will be the last generation to suffer from the blight. And Trevian is quick to embrace this, proving that he really was only looking to help people. Now that he can vaccinate them, well, he's all over that. Just really important not to mix up the two lists of ingredients. Do the pregnant ladies get the herbs or the mercury? I shouldn't have left my notes back at the office. The post-episode follow-up. Annoying character is Jenny McCarthy, who arrived after the fade to black to tell the people that Bashir was a tool of Big Pharma and not to take the vaccine. Scoring this episode is hard, and let me explain why. This episode is very well written, gives Siddig a chance to explore the character's highs and lows here, and his reaction to the birth of the baby is wonderfully human. The guest stars all work well, Dax is at her absolute best as the wise counsel that he needs, and it takes the expectation and turns it on its head, where Bashir succeeds, but not the way he intended, and not as easily as he assumed. So here's the problem. I can't really tell you anything wrong with this at all, except that I have no desire to see it again. I didn't dislike it in any way, but my only appreciation of it is purely intellectual as a work, rather than appreciating the work itself. It's a very competently done piece that I just can't invest myself in at all, and I don't think that's ever happened before. So I've decided that my lack of interest in rewatching this, well, makes it roughly comparable to that of Take Me Out to the Holosuite. So, upon the basis of that metric, I am giving The Quickening a score of 3 out of 10. It might sound unfair, but that's how I see it. It's a well-executed story that I'm just not engaged by.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
Captain Quark's is fun. Come right now. Don't walk. Run!
Oh, I love the part where my name rotates around.